It started like any other worn-down Friday. You know, the kind rain that doesn't fall so much as linger in the air like wet smoke, roads that feel greased over with oil and old frustration, and a sense that the whole week has just been one long sigh you haven't let out yet. I was closing up the shop late again. It wasn't supposed to be that kind of day. I'd been on my feet since 7 a.m., already aching by lunch, and was counting the minutes until I could drag myself home, shower off the stench of diesel and grit, and maybe grab takeout on the way. But at 5:26, just 4 minutes before close, a beat-up Lexus limped into the lot, hissing steam like a boiling kettle. The guy inside looked like he'd seen a ghost or his credit score. "Please," he said, eyes wide. "I know you're closing, but my engine." I could have said no. Should have, really. I had somewhere to be even if I didn't want to go. But saying no never sat right with me, especially when a man was in a panic. So I nodded, told him to pop the hood, and dove back in. By the time I got it patched up enough to drive, wrote the receipt, and cleaned my hands, the clock read 7:53. The shop was cold and quiet, just me and the smell of oil-soaked rags. My back screamed, my shoulders burned, and I was already mentally rehearsing how I'd apologize for being late without starting a fight. That's when I checked my phone. Just one message. "Don't be late. No drama. Joan will be there. No, love you." No smiley face. Just logistics. Just orders. I stared at the text, reading it again and again like maybe some hidden warmth would show up the third or fourth time through. It didn't. I sat there for a long second, engine idling, wipers fighting the rain, thinking, why does it feel like I'm being summoned, not invited? We were supposed to be heading to this dinner at Savannah's place, Haley's business partner and new best friend. They'd only gotten close in the last 6 months, ever since that new startup deal came through. Suddenly Savannah was everywhere. Her voice echoed through our living room on speakerphone, her name came up in stories over dinner, her perfume lingered on Haley's coat when she came home late. This dinner was some kind of corporate bonding thing, supposedly casual. Wives, husbands, clients. The kind of thing Haley always said I needed to show up for if I ever wanted people to take us seriously. I didn't know who people were, but I figured I didn't need to. Still, I showered quickly back at the house, threw on the nicest thing I owned that wasn't stained with grease, dark jeans, button-up shirt, jacket, and hit the road. It was a 40-minute drive into the countryside. Trees blurred past in the darkness, and all the while I had that feeling. You know the one. That low, hollow hum in your chest. Like the warning light on your dashboard that comes on even though nothing looks wrong yet. Savannah's house sat at the end of a gravel road tucked behind wrought iron gates and enough hedges to lose a grown man in. Lit up like a wedding venue. Warm, golden light spilled out from the windows. I could already hear the music, jazzy, upbeat, classy in that curated kind of way. Laughter echoed from inside. I sat in the car a minute before getting out. Took a deep breath. Plastered on the kind of smile you wear when you're not sure what's waiting behind the door. I rang the bell. The door opened too quickly. Savannah herself, tall, composed, glass of wine already in hand, grinned at me like we were old friends. "Caleb," she said. "We weren't sure you'd make it." She didn't say Haley told us you were coming. Just that. We. I stepped in, wiping my shoes on the rug. The air was warm, rich with the smell of spiced wine and roasted lamb. A fire crackled in the living room. People milled about, half with wine glasses, half on their phones. Designer shoes, sharp blazers, eyes that flicked toward me and then back to their conversations. I felt underdressed in ways that had nothing to do with clothing. And then I saw her. Haley. Standing in the hallway just past the entry. Her back was to me. Red dress, tight-fitting, sleeveless, elegant in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Not on her. Her hair was curled, dark waves brushing her shoulder. She was laughing softly at something the man in front of her was saying. He leaned in closer. Just enough that you'd mistake it for Macy. Just enough that it wasn't. And then I heard it. Heard him. "You said he wasn't coming." 7 words. That's all. But they slapped me harder than anything ever had. I froze. My stomach dropped like an elevator without brakes. Haley didn't jump, didn't flinch. She just turned. Smiling like she was mid-performance. "This is my brother, Tom," she said smoothly. "We just ran into each other. He's leaving." Brother. The word came out too easy. Tom didn't offer a hand. Didn't say hi. Didn't even look at me. Just nodded, lips tight, and walked past, brushing my shoulder like I wasn't even worth the space I stood in. I stood there, staring at Haley. She stared right back, that smile still frozen on her face. Not guilt. Not fear. Just calculation. I should have said something. Anything. But I didn't. I walked in. I played along. I told myself I was being paranoid. that I misheard, that I misunderstood, that maybe this was what couples do, show up, smile through discomfort, then talk about it later. Except we never did. She didn't even mention it again. Just grabbed my arm, pulled me into the dining room, and introduced me to people with names I'd forget 5 minutes later. She laughed at their jokes. She poured my wine. She played the role perfectly. And I sat beside her, nodding, sipping, forcing my way through a meal that tasted like ash. The whole time I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting Tom to pop back in, to sit down next to her, to steal a glance. But he didn't, because he'd already left, because she didn't expect me to show up. And now that I had, all she could do was improvise. That night, lying in bed beside her, I couldn't sleep. She turned her back to me, breath even, like nothing had happened. But I couldn't stop replaying his voice in my head. You said he wasn't coming. That wasn't the sound of a brother surprised by a sibling's arrival. That was someone who thought he had more time. That was someone who thought he had the house to himself. That was someone who believed he wasn't going to be seen. And for the first time in our marriage, I started to wonder how many times had I not been seen either? They say once you see something, you can't unsee it. That was me the morning after Savannah's dinner. Haley was humming in the kitchen like nothing had happened, flipping through her emails, sipping coffee from the mug I gave her for our anniversary, the one that said, "Still my favorite, hello." I watched her from across the room and realized I didn't recognize the way she smiled at her screen. It wasn't the dinner that broke me. It was the ease. How quickly she covered. How easily Tom became my brother. How comfortably she let me walk into that house, into that lie, and just expected me to blend in. That's what stuck with me, not the whisper, not the too tight hug, not even the dress. It was how normal she made it all look. Like it wasn't the first time she'd done it. The drive home that night had been quiet. She'd said something like, "Wasn't that fun?" I nodded. She smiled. Rolled the window down. Let the wind carry away whatever tension she might have felt. Me? I was silent. My hands were locked on the wheel like the car would fall apart if I let go. I didn't ask questions. I didn't say what I wanted to say, because I already knew the answer and hearing it wouldn't help. But the real questions came later when I was alone. In the shower. On my lunch break. Standing at the gas station with a pump in one hand and my brain in a tailspin. When did this start? I started going back in time, mentally rewinding conversations, little shifts, forgotten red flags. It had been a slow change now that I looked at it. Subtle. Strategic. The late nights at work were the first thing that stood out. A new campaign. Big client. She needed to be on call. That's what she said. And I believed her because why wouldn't I? I mean, she loved her job. She was good at it. And I was always proud of her hustle. So when she started staying late more often, I didn't blink. I brought her dinner sometimes. Texted her funny memes while I waited at home. I didn't realize that was the beginning of her pulling away. Then there were the girls' nights. Every Friday for a stretch of about 5 weeks. Not uncommon, Haley's always had a tight-knit group of friends from college. But it was how she talked about them. Or didn't. When I asked how it went, she'd say, "Good," and pivot. No stories, no details, no drama. Just flat, processed answers. And then came the perfume. That's when the sick feeling started. She came home late one Thursday around midnight. I was dozing on the couch, TV low, still half watching a documentary I didn't care about. She walked in, heels in hand, hair messy in a way that wasn't accidental. And she smelled different. Not bad. Not like cigarettes or sweat. Different. Expensive. Sharp, floral, something I'd never smelled on her before. I asked, not accusingly, just curiously. "New perfume." She looked startled for half a second. Then she laughed. "Oh, it's not mine. Savannah let me try hers. She gave me a bottle. Workbook." I nodded. But it didn't sit right. Haley was picky with scents. She hated anything too strong. I'd heard her complain about migraine triggers from department store testers. Now she was wearing this new scent only to work, never at home, and never with me. That night, after she went to bed, I checked the bathroom counter. Her usual bottle, a soft vanilla blend, was untouched. The new one? Not there. I checked her work bag the next day when she was in the shower. Nothing, which meant she was keeping it somewhere else. And that's when the dam started to crack. From then on, I watched more closely. Not in a paranoid, tinfoil hat kind of way. Just attentively. I started noticing how she kept her phone with her all the time now. In the bathroom, on the nightstand, even when she went to check the mail. Always face down. Always locked. Once upon a time, we had nothing to hide. She'd hand me her phone to find recipes or playlists. Now, if I so much as glanced at it while it buzzed, She'd casually reposition it or flip it over like it meant nothing. And I kept telling myself, maybe you're overreacting. Maybe you're just tired. But that changed the night I saw the message. It was a Saturday. We'd had a quiet evening. Pizza, a movie, barely any conversation. She fell asleep on the couch next to me, head tilted back, phone in hand. I gently eased it from her fingers, meaning to plug it in on the charger. That's when it lit up. Thanks for last night. Still feel your fingers. Winky face. I just stared at it. My heart stopped. I didn't even breathe. I waited for it to disappear, like maybe I'd imagined it. But it didn't. And the way my hands shook, I almost dropped the phone. I opened the messages. Just one thread. Just that one. She stirred, and I locked the phone and set it down, trying to act natural. In the morning, I brought it up. Texted you last night. She blinked. What? On your phone. They said something about last night. She didn't even flinch. Oh, that's Savannah. She got a new haircut. I helped style it before her date. It was late. I thought I told you. You didn't, I said quietly. She smiled. You always jump to conclusions, babe. And just like that, the conversation ended. Except it didn't. Not for me. From that moment on, I couldn't stop noticing things. How she breathed differently when I asked where she'd been. How she tensed up if I kissed her neck. How her laughs came easier when she was texting than when she was with me. How the warmth in her eyes was replaced by patience. Like she was tolerating me. Like I was a background noise she'd grown used to. I started waking up earlier, staying up later. Watching her when she wasn't watching me. And everywhere I looked, I saw it. Distance. Deletion. Deviation. My wife, the woman I built a life with, was slipping out of frame. Not running. Not fleeing. Just fading. Like a ghost who hadn't figured out she was gone yet. One night, we were brushing our teeth in silence. She was scrolling her phone between swishes of mouthwash. I looked at her in the mirror, really looked, and for a second I wondered, what if she's already living a second life? What if I'm just the placeholder? The insurance policy? I wanted to ask. I wanted to scream. I wanted to know. But instead, I rinsed, spat, and said goodnight. She said it back. And I lay awake in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, I'm not crazy. I'm not imagining this. Something's happening. And it was only a matter of time before I had the proof. By the time Friday rolled around, I wasn't looking for signs anymore. I was looking for confirmation. I'd gone from suspicious husband to quiet observer of a crime that hadn't yet been confessed. The signs weren't subtle anymore. They were screaming. Her distance wasn't just emotional. It was strategic. She was managing me like a publicist handles a scandal. Keep the surface clean. Bury the mess where no one looks. That morning, Haley was in high spirits. Hair curled. Black dress. Lipstick that matched the shoes she used to call her backup heels. But now wore like armor. She made coffee. Asked about my weekend plans. Laughed at something on her phone. Big dinner tonight, she said casually, adjusting her earrings in the hallway mirror. Savannah invited the whole client team. I probably won't be back early. I nodded. I didn't ask to come. I already knew I wasn't invited. Don't wait up, she added. I didn't say anything. Just smiled like I always did. Like a good husband. Like someone too stupid to notice the lipstick stains on his peace of mind. She left around 6. At 6:02, I grabbed my jacket and keys. Sat in the car for a few minutes. Took a deep breath. I'd never followed anyone before. Never even thought about doing it. But there's something that happens to you when suspicion hardens into certainty. You lose shame. You lose fear. All you want is the truth, no matter how bad it is. I stayed a few car lengths back. Her taillights led me through traffic, weaving into downtown. She didn't head toward the company building. Didn't take the exit for the conference hotel. She turned down a side street I knew well, lined with restaurants, jazz bars, candlelit places where you don't go to network, you go to lean in close. She parked. I waited. She stepped out of the car, heels clicking on pavement. The streetlight hit her face just right, and for a second, I remembered the first night I saw her. The way she laughed. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about wanting to start her own firm one day. She was radiant, magnetic, and in that moment, I hated her for making me remember that. Then he appeared. Tom. Not brother Tom. Not surprise dinner guest Tom. The real one. He walked up, smiling. Put his hand low on her back like he'd done it 100 times. She smiled back, leaned into him, said something I couldn't hear, but I could tell from the way he laughed that it wasn't about work. They didn't check their watches, didn't rush inside. They lingered like teenagers outside a school dance, their world reduced to the inches between them. Then it happened. He kissed her. Not a peck, not a cheek graze, a real kiss, the kind with history behind it. And she kissed him back. I froze. My stomach didn't drop, it twisted. Hard. Like my body was trying to turn inside out. I took out my phone. Snapped a picture. My hands were shaking. The sound of the shutter made me nauseous. They walked into the restaurant together, laughing. I sat in the car for over an hour, staring at the photo, at her smile, at the hand she let him hold. I didn't cry, didn't yell, just sat there, empty, like someone had scooped me out and left the shell. A memory hit me then, out of nowhere. Our second anniversary. We couldn't afford a fancy trip, so she planned a picnic. She made all my favorite foods, even baked the lemon bars I liked but she secretly hated. I remember thinking that day, this is it. This is the life I want. Simple, safe, shared. But now I was sitting outside a restaurant like a stranger, watching my wife touch another man like I'd never existed. At some point I drove home. I don't remember the drive. I couldn't tell you what route I took, what songs played, or what time it was when I walked through the door. What I do remember is that Haley came home 3 hours later, hair still curled, smile still perfect. Not a wrinkle in her dress. Not a trace of anything suspicious. If I hadn't been there myself, I would have never known. She kissed me on the cheek, asked how my night was, said something about the lamb being undercooked. And just like that, the lie came home and curled up beside me in bed. I stared at the ceiling all night. She slept soundly. I think that's what hurt most. Not the cheating. Not even the lying. It was how effortless it all was for her. How easy it was to be loved by someone else and come home like nothing happened. The next day, I looked at the photo again. Zoomed in. Her eyes weren't even closed. She was looking right at him. Focused. Present. The way she hadn't looked at me in months. And I realized something sickening. I'd lost her long before that kiss. The morning after I watched my wife kiss another man, she made French toast. She never makes French toast. She wore my hoodie, hummed while she cooked, poured coffee like it was any other Saturday. It wasn't. Not for me. For me, it was the morning I woke up beside a stranger. And I couldn't say anything. Not yet. I watched her move around the kitchen like everything was fine. Like we hadn't reached the edge of the cliff. Like she hadn't already jumped and left me standing there. She handed me a plate. "You've been quiet," she said, smiling. "Long week." "Yeah," I murmured. That was the game now, pretend. Pretend I didn't see her with him. Pretend I wasn't dying inside. Pretend this wasn't the beginning of the end. She talked about errands. A new plant she wanted for the living room. Something about Joan from work getting engaged. I nodded through it, one eye on my coffee, the other on her face. Looking for cracks, for guilt, for even the slightest twitch of remorse. But there was nothing. She was perfect. She played her part like it was muscle memory. And maybe it was. That weekend, she suggested we go to brunch. "We haven't had a proper date in forever," she said, tilting her head just so. Like that would soften the blow of every unanswered question in my throat. I agreed. Why? I don't know. Maybe I wanted to see if she'd flinch. Maybe I hoped she'd confess. She didn't. We sat at a cafe downtown, 2 tables away from a couple arguing quietly about their kids' preschool. Haley wore sunglasses and laughed at a joke I didn't make. I stirred my coffee and wondered if Tom had seen that same laugh last night. If he liked the way she brushed her hair back when she was trying to seem relaxed. If he noticed how she reached for her glass with both hands when she was nervous. After brunch, we walked through the farmer's market. She bought flowers. I carried the bag. We must have looked like a postcard, the happy couple out on a sunny day. Nobody knew I was carrying proof in my pocket that just hours before I'd stared at a photo of her in another man's arms. On the outside, nothing had changed. On the inside, everything had. That night, after she fell asleep, I lay in bed with my back to her. Her breathing was steady, slow. I could have said something. Could have woken her up, turned on the light, demanded the truth. But I didn't. I needed more. Not just a photo. Not just a kiss. I needed to see how far she'd take it. How deep the lie went. So when she invited me to another one of Savannah's dinners, I said yes. Really? She said, surprised. Yeah, I answered. Why not? She smiled, not thrilled, more like someone covering a slip in the script. Joan asked about you. She'll be happy. That Sunday, I put on the same jacket I wore to the first dinner. Not out of laziness. On purpose. I wanted her to notice. To remember. She didn't. We arrived around 7. The place was crowded, louder than last time. Music, laughter, wine glasses clinking, the usual mask of civility. Haley led me through the foyer, hand light on my back. Like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't been pretending for weeks. And there he was. Tom. Same blazer. Same smug confidence. Leaning against the kitchen island, sipping wine like he belonged there. He smiled when he saw her. Not polite. Not friendly. An asterisk, mate. She smiled back. And I watched her walk over to him, touch his arm, fix the edge of his tie. In a room full of people, they moved like they were alone. I followed behind. Numb. We mingled. We laughed. I shook hands with people who called me Calvin or Craig and didn't care enough to be corrected. I stood by the drinks table while Haley sat beside Tom at the couch, close enough their knees touched. Someone handed me a beer. I didn't drink it. Then it happened. A woman, someone from Haley's team, I think, walked over. She'd clearly had a few drinks. Bright lipstick. Loud voice. She looked from me to Haley and laughed. Oh, this is Caleb? Sorry. Honestly, I thought you and Tom were already a thing. Silence. A small one. Just enough. And then Haley smiled. Tilted her head. Well, she said, when someone sees you, life stops being a routine. It starts being a choice. Everyone laughed. Even Tom. I didn't. I stood up. Slowly. No dramatic pushback. No glass shattering. Just stood. And walked out the front door. No one followed. No one stopped me. Not even her. The air outside was cold. Sharper than I expected. My breath came out in clouds even though I didn't feel like I was breathing at all. I got in the car. Hands on the wheel. Stared at the dashboard. And I realized she wasn't going to end it. Because in her mind she already had. She just forgot to tell me. When I got home that night, I didn't turn on the lights. I walked through the front door like a stranger, quiet, deliberate, stepping over the same welcome mat I'd chosen with Haley 3 years ago because it said, "Together is our favorite place to be." I hadn't noticed it in months. Now I couldn't stop staring at it. The house was clean. Perfectly staged. Her jacket hung by the door, keys in the bowl. The smell of rosemary and lemon lingered in the air. For a second, I thought she was home already. But she wasn't. Just her perfume, the one I never saw on the bathroom counter. I set my keys down. Slipped off my shoes. Stood there in the hallway while the silence filled up every room like smoke. It felt different now. Not peaceful. Just hollow. Like the house itself knew something was wrong and didn't want to pretend anymore. Her laptop was open on the dining table. Soft glow from the screen lit up the room. I didn't mean to look at it. I didn't go searching. But something pulled me forward like gravity. It was an email. A draft. Not sent yet. Not hidden. Just open. The subject line was blank. The body said, "Last night felt like a dream. You and me like it was always supposed to be. With him, it's empty. I'm not even mad at him. He's not the enemy. He's just not you. Not real." I stared at it for a long time. Long enough for the screen to dim. I touched the trackpad and let it glow again like I needed to read it twice just to believe it. This wasn't a flirty text. This wasn't misinterpreted body language or lipstick on a collar. This was a goodbye written to someone else, signed with silence to me. She didn't pity me. Didn't hate me. I wasn't a monster or a mistake. I just wasn't real to her anymore. I wasn't her life. I was her alibi. I closed the laptop gently. Sat down at the table. Put my hands flat on the wood and stared at them. They looked older somehow. Like they belonged to someone who'd been through more than he signed up for. My first instinct was to rage. To throw something. To scream. But nothing came. No tears. No shaking hands. Just clarity. Cold and clean. It wasn't just that she had someone else. It was that she chose someone else. Over and over. With intention. With planning. With full knowledge of what it would do to me and how well she could hide it. Every work dinner, every Friday night out, every fake laugh at the breakfast table, it had all been rehearsed. Coordinated. While I tightened bolts under car hoods and figured out payroll and brought home groceries, she was building a whole other world and decorating it with someone else's affection. And the worst part? I think she believed I'd never find out. Or maybe she didn't care if I did. I got up from the table. Walked into the hallway. Opened the closet where we kept our old photo albums. I pulled one out, a leather-bound one from our second year of marriage. Flipped through it slowly. Road trips. Concerts. Thanksgiving at her mom's. The night we painted the living room ourselves and got high off fumes and laughed like idiots. I looked at our faces, our younger, brighter faces, and wondered if she'd been pretending then, too. Or if the pretending started later when things got quiet and we stopped trying. I closed the album, left it on the floor, went upstairs. Our bedroom smelled like her shampoo. The sheets were pulled tight, pillows fluffed. She'd done that thing she always did, turned down the comforter on my side of the bed like an invitation. But it didn't feel like my bed anymore. It felt like a stage. Like everything else. I slept on the couch. Or tried to. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her laughing with him. Fixing his tie. Writing that email. Saying I wasn't real. So I stayed awake. Counting ceiling tiles. Listening to the refrigerator hum. Waiting for her to come home. She didn't. At 3:14 a.m. I checked my phone. No messages. At 4:52 I stopped checking. By morning I had made up my mind. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need an apology. I needed out. Monday morning I called a lawyer. Not from my cell. From the garage office. I stood by the parts shelf, staring at a rusted transmission case while the phone rang. When the receptionist picked up, I kept my voice steady. Told her my name, said I needed to talk to someone about filing for divorce. She asked if there had been events. I said yes. I have documentation, I added. Photos. Dates. A written message she never meant me to see. There was a pause on the other end. Then, we can fit you in Thursday. I hung up. Wrote the appointment on the corner of a napkin. Folded it twice. Put it in my pocket. Back home, she was already there. I pulled up to the driveway and saw a second car, not hers. My heart didn't race. My stomach didn't turn. I didn't freeze in place like I always thought I would. I just sat there, in the driver's seat, hand still on the key, and let the moment pass through me. Then I got out. Tom was in the kitchen. Not even trying to hide. Not in some panic-stricken rush to leave. Not darting out the back door like he respected me enough to be ashamed. He was pouring tea. Casual. Comfortable. Like he lived here. Haley looked up from the counter. She didn't gasp. Didn't jump back from him. Just said, hey, like I was early for something we'd all planned together. I didn't answer. I walked to the hallway closet, grabbed the duffel bag I hadn't used since our last beach trip. Packed quietly. Methodically. Birth certificate. Bank statements. My dad's photo. My college sweatshirt. The external hard drive with all our tax returns. Nothing else. I didn't slam drawers. I didn't yell. Tom stood when I passed by the kitchen again. Like he wanted to say something. Maybe offer some pathetic justification or apology. He didn't. Neither did she. I looked at neither of them. Not because I was weak, but because I had nothing left to give. I opened the door, stepped outside, and let it close behind me. It didn't slam. It didn't echo. It just clicked. Soft and final. I got in the truck. Drove. Nowhere in particular at first. Just away. 10 minutes out of town, I pulled into a motel off the highway. One of those places with burnt orange doors and a buzzing neon sign that said vacancy even when it didn't look like anyone else was there. I asked for a room. Paid cash. The woman behind the counter didn't ask questions. Inside, the room was small. Stiff bed. Peeling wallpaper. A dusty Bible in the nightstand drawer. I threw my bag on the chair. Sat on the edge of the bed. Took a deep breath for the first time in days. And felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Air. Not peace. Not relief. Not forgiveness. Just air. No perfume hanging on the sheets. No second-guessing the look on someone's face. No pretending I wasn't watching the person I loved treat me like a houseplant, water once a week, never dead, never fully alive. That night I didn't call anyone. Didn't check social media. Didn't drink. Just sat on the bed, hands in my lap, letting the silence settle like dust. The motel had a vending machine in the hallway. I bought a bottle of water and a bag of pretzels. Ate them while staring at the ceiling. Slept in my clothes. Woke up before the sun. Still no messages from her. That was how I knew I made the right choice. The next few days were a blur of paperwork and logistics. I met with the lawyer, a woman named Carter. Sharp, fast-talking, no nonsense. I handed her the file I'd built in secret, the photos, the screenshot *TS, the printed copy of the email draft she forgot to delete. She scanned through them, nodding. "Are you looking for leverage?" she asked. "No," I said. "Just freedom." She looked at me for a second, like maybe she was trying to measure what kind of man I was. Then she nodded again. "Okay, let's start with the filing. I'll take care of everything else." By Thursday night, it was official. Papers were in motion. Separation initiated. On Friday, I came back to the house. Not to talk. To pack the last of my things. I waited until midday when I knew she'd be home. I didn't want her gone. I wanted her there. Wanted her to see what it looked like when someone walks away, not in fury but in clarity. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch. Alone this time. Tom wasn't there. She looked up startled. "Caleb," she said. I didn't answer. I moved past her into the bedroom. Started folding clothes. Took down the photos from the wall. Left the wedding ones in the drawer. Took only the ones where I was smiling by myself. 10 minutes later, she was standing in the doorway. "You're not gonna say anything?" she asked, voice brittle. I kept packing. "You're just leaving?" I zipped the duffel bag. Looked up at her. "You already did," I said quietly. She didn't reply. And I didn't need her to. I walked past her. Down the hallway. Through the kitchen. No dishes in the sink. Everything clean, like a hotel room waiting for the next guest. At the front door, she said, "Is this really it?" I paused, one hand on the knob. "It was over the second you decided I wouldn't notice," I said. Then I opened the door. And left.